Welcome back to the second boss in Wing 2 of the Molten Core raid in Warcraft Rumble. Now, before we get started, thank you so much, Warcraft Rumble, for sponsoring today's video. I greatly appreciate working with you guys. Now, as we get into this boss, this one is Garr. Again, the second boss in the Molten Core raid in Warcraft Rumble. And once again, I am updating all of my guides because there have been some slight adjustments, nerfs, and buffs to different parts of each of these bosses. Now, Garr in particular was one that was pretty heavily changed. The old strategy used to be to bring Jaina and just spam execute and defend the base. That was basically it. That's what a lot of people recommend to do. Now you actually have to do the mechanics. And the mechanics are you basically want to kill your turrets. There's several turrets in this fight. This fight is a very long fight now. There's several turrets on either side that you and your partner will want to work either together to push at the same time or work together to push at one side and then just defend the other. The reason you want to keep in mind of where your turrets are and your gold is because when your turrets die or are taken back over by Garr and his minions, you actually get this huge earth elemental that is just an absolute unit that has his own AoE force field, essentially, that just does AoE damage around him that goes straight to your base. So you're going to want to kill them as soon as you can, but you also want to try to avoid getting that mechanic altogether. Now, this is a very hard boss when it comes to that, because especially if you push both sides. So personally, I would recommend not doing what we did. We both sort of just pushed at the same time and made it all the way up. Prioritize one lane and then just have the other player play more defense. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. It is a very, very long fight. You can see that there are 3 turrets on either side. There are a lot of gold mines, so it is not ill-advised to bring a dark iron miner. You can actually get a ton of gold for that, and it also shuts down how much ads come against you, so keep that in mind. Now, the hero this is just a must-do for Sneed, and then you're going to want to use a Sneed before Greed because you're going to be taking turrets left, right, and center. So his buff with that Sneed before Greed talent is that you get additional gold whenever your Sneed before Greed is active. And Sneed before Greed is basically Sneed's passive, where if a siege unit takes a tower, you get additional gold. So you want to have Sneed out at all times, and you want to make sure a last hit is being done by a siege unit. Now, the reason I say that is because we are using several siege units, actually. So Sneed is his own siege unit, and that's okay. You can see that we're also utilizing our good friend Goblin Zapper, because it's a really quick, easy way of just knocking down a tower. And then Earth Elemental as well. So you can see I put out my Sneed, as well as my Earth Elemental, sort of rotate everyone around so they're not attacking Sneed. And yeah, just kill those guys. And then here are the Sappers. So you can see the Sappers are going to basically kill this tower for me between them and Sneed, and then we got a ton of gold for that, which is fantastic. I got 4 + 2 + 2 is, I believe, what I saw. But again, the most important thing here is to make sure that your towers do not get retaken, because you don't want that huge ad to come out and just be a pain in the butt. So actually there is the ad, so even if you take it, it still comes. So there you go. You can see that my partner is focusing on my lane. I think that was not always the case. I can't really remember now that I say that. Again, this was pre-recorded on my phone, so I don't unfortunately have volume. I was not smart and left my phone on vibrate for this whole raid encounter, every single fight. So none of it has volume except for Rag. So we'll get to that. But anyway, so you can see the ads are very, very tanky. Execute is a huge part of it, and they will focus the first tower they get to, and they do a lot of damage to the towers. They can probably like 4 or 5 hit the towers. So you're going to want to make sure you see that one just took it down. So now another minion will spawn. There you go. So it's just a bad time. Now it's like, okay, great. Now I have to burn through several of those minis, and they are considered a mini boss, so you can't just take them over with a Banshee or whatever. You do have to burn them down. The hard part is that you are going to want to have a lot of siege units, so they aren't great at taking down a non-siege unit like this, but has as much health as a siege unit. But you can see that my execute did over half the damage of that. So don't be scared to use your execute on these little mini bosses. And then once you get there, you're going to want to just fight Garr. That's phase 1. Push and make sure your towers don't get retaken. Make sure you're using Sneed before Greed and using a siege unit to get the last hit to get all the additional gold. After that, just make sure you're mining as much as possible and you're keeping an eye on your base. So phase 1 is once you get to Garr, is just a tank and spank. Once he pushes to phase 2, he does a ton of AoE damage where you can use execute, of course, on the boss. But that's where he does a ton of AoE damage, and all towers will be starting to be taken back over. And that's where things can get a little hairy very, very quickly. And that's the same thing for phase 2 going into phase 3, but phase 3 gets a lot harder, which we'll talk about here in a second. So you can see we're on the cuff of pushing to phase 2. I'm like not trying to overcommit my gold. I'm just trying to do the bare minimum of what I'm offering. It looks like I'm actually also using my Warsong Rider, who isn't terrible. It's a siege unit still and does a ton of damage and it's pretty tanky. So you can see that's the AoE damage to all turrets, both taken and not. So I am trying to get as many of my minis on there to take it back as soon as I can. You can see where my partner is using those unbound skeletal mages, which is a awesome pick, especially if you're doing a defensive strat with 1 person offense, 1 person defense, which it looks like now that I say it again and watching this over, we're sort of doing a hybrid approach to that strategy. So do that. You both don't need it, but it doesn't hurt to both have it. You can see siege units are taking over. Another good siege unit is actually Meat Wagon. You can see my partner's also using that because they can attack over the walls from just insanely far away. And once again, the execute is just chunking down those golems. So once again, we are making our way on our way to take over all the towers. Phase 3 is very much a burn phase because in addition to the AoE of all the towers, Garr will actually do a ton of damage to your direct base. So not only does he do that AoE rock slam on the towers, he does it to your base. So the time is then ticking once you get into phase 3. So you want to make sure you're sort of tactful when you push him into phase 3. When we used to do like the execute strategy where you just spam execute on the boss and defend, you would basically wait until the overtime, so you got the additional gold before you even try to kill the boss, which meant it wasn't a good experience. Like it was very boring to just defend for that long and just defend your base. This makes a lot more sense. I'm glad they made the adjustment. It's not necessarily a buff as much as like I would say a good adjustment to make the mechanics viable and make the players actually have to do the mechanics. Because honestly, like I had more fun doing the mechanics than I did just spamming one spell over and over with Jaina execute. This is way more fun. It's more engaging. That's what it should be. But we as players are always going to find the most effective way or meta way, most efficient thing available to beat the bosses. So we used what we had, and the change was not a bad one in my opinion. Anyway, back to the fight. You can see that this Drake just started doing a number on all of my units, which was just super obnoxious. Really, finally took it down. Honestly, that Drake did a number on everything. So we're positioning ourselves to push into phase 3 of the boss. Now, again, I'm always keeping in mind where I am with my turrets so I don't lose them because I don't want to be pushing into phase 3 and have any of those additional units. I'm getting my gold ready. Now I am now pushing. I'm ready to push him into phase 3. So we have our units on him. That's Dark Spirit Troll is sort of annoying, so I did use execute on him as well. We're almost pushed him into phase 3. And you can see that we're actually, they're getting gold, they being the boss is getting gold from that Dark Iron Miner that they spawned. So now it's slowed down our push a little bit. So we're on the cuff of pushing to phase 3, and just look at how basically hectic it gets once phase 3 starts. So a few more units here. We're getting a little bit more gold from mining. So this is good for us. It's also almost overtime. So this is like perfect timing that we push him into phase 3 literally right there. So as soon as overtime happened, we push into phase 3. Now you can look at the health at the very top of the screen over here. You can see that we are just taking non-stop damage. It's actually non-trivial, and it's because of the speed at which it's happening, and you can't stop it. Like you could heal it, it's sort of ish if you had like that Frostwolf Shaman who does like that base healing, but it's just better to tank and spake at this point. Now you can see that he's actually not damaging the turrets, which is nice, and you're just spamming execute and just getting all of your abilities out as fast as possible, because again, you can see like we are losing a ton of health and there is no one attacking our base. It is just Garr, the boss, wrecking our base, wrecking it. So you can see he also does the AoE around himself. So like my Whelp Eggs did literally nothing. Execute is huge for this. Harpies instantly died. Like they don't even get a hit on him. You can see the Meat Wagon was huge for this actually. And then my Goblin Sappers also died as soon as they got there. So Sneed and a Meat Wagon and Execute is basically how we want it. And there's the final Execute. Pushing us into phase dead, if you will. So Sneed is the basically one and only boss, or leader rather, I would recommend for this boss. It doesn't hurt you. This is by far the boss with the most turrets by a long shot. So Sneed makes the most sense here. Always plan on using Sneed on this fight. And after that, guys, you have now completed Wing 2, the second boss. So you have fully completed Wing 1 and Wing 2 of the Molten Core raid. Congratulations. And if you want to push into Wing 3 and inevitably beat Ragnaros, make sure you subscribe and like the video, because I am bringing you Wing 3 here very shortly. So like, subscribe, make sure you download Warcraft Rumble totally for free in the link of today's video, as well as in the description of today's video. And once again, thank you so much, Warcraft Rumble, for sponsoring today's video. Have a good one, guys.